Hello everyone, and welcome to this week of First and 10. I'm your host, Jason Hagcomb, joined as always by my tag team partner, Matt Etchier. And Matt, it was another exciting week of OUA football for both the Guelph Griffins and Laurier Golden Hawks. Obviously it went one way for another team, but, we're going to start things out here with Guelph. For Guelph, homecoming, 18,000 people there. You're playing the team you just lost the Yates Cup to, and the only team you ever lost to last season. And guess what, folks? Guelph has a flair for the dramatics, and this one was dramatic, but for the right reasons.
It's true. They are making a name for themselves as a team that can win these close games. Tight defensive game to start things off with. Lindsay and Ferguson both traded touchdown passes in the second quarter, and going into halftime, it was only 13-10. A lot of people thought there'd be more fireworks in this one, but then in the third quarter, it was all Guelph as Farquharson making his debut on the season, and Lindsay both scored rushing touchdowns, and it was 24-16 with about a minute left. Guelph leading 24-16. Ferguson, obviously, he tossed a touchdown pass late in the game, and then it came down to that 2-point conversion, and they couldn't do it. Guelph ended up winning it 24-22. What a game it was.
Exactly. What a game it was. What a way to have, a huge homecoming. Like tons of people were there to make sure that this was a homecoming to remember. And you know what? On the field, they definitely did, especially Guelph's defense. We know a lot about the offense for Guelph. The Lindsays, they had a strong run game already in the season, with the likes of Johnny Augustine. But now having Farquharson back is a huge deal. We'll get to him in just a moment. But that defense, a defense that we have been praising all year, they needed a real test to prove how strong they were. Yeah. And folks, they really did here, because your homecoming game, your biggest tough test on the line, and you were able to stand up to it with a 2-point stop that would have sent the game to overtime. And when it's overtime, folks, you don't know where things are going to go. So Guelph's defense was able to just be fantastic when it counted, and all day for that matter. I mean, when you look at the stat, they only allowed 52 rushing yards for McMaster.
Crazy.
They had, certain players step up, like defensive back Taylor Palmer had 5.5 tackles, 2 picks.
Yeah.
I mean, just a great time for them on defense. But having, as we were saying, Robert Farquharson was a key to their push last year in the playoffs. Having him back in the lineup, and if you can mix him up with Augustine and the skills that Lindsay has with the air and on the feet, I don't know who's going to be able to beat this Guelph team, Matt.
Their offense, it is actually statistically in terms of yards per game one of the lowest in the OUA right now. But I truly believe Farquharson coming back is going to change it. The game on Saturday, he just ran over guys. He was unstoppable. It was absolutely ridiculous. They had no answer for him. 119 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And they even said that he was going to be limited in the game, but he didn't. He said in an interview afterwards that because the game was on TV, he got more rest and that kind of thing. So he pretty much played the whole game, and he looks in fine form for the rest of the season.
Absolutely in fine form. Hopefully he can stay healthy for the Griffins, because they're going to require a lot of his presence on the field, in the backfield. But all in all, just great day for Guelph, for not just the Griffins, but the city and the University of Guelph, because a big homecoming win, and then there's still the hopes for this team going forward are just even more so through the roof.
Just quickly, this is their first win against McMaster in 7 years, and it's the Guelph Griffins' best start for their football team in 16 years. So that's big.
Yeah, that's definitely big, and we're still expecting big things to come from the Griffins. Then moving just down the road there to Waterloo, the Laurier Golden Hawks had their second home game of the season against the Western Mustangs, the number 1 school in the OUA, number 2 school in all of Canada. So it's a real tough test for Laurier. And folks, let me tell you something. They were able to handle that one pretty well. We said they had to cram. They had to get a lot of studying in. Well, guess what? They crammed and they studied hard, and it paid off here in this game. They were in control basically of the first half. Some minor penalties and stuff of that nature, but hey, they were still on top. They had their main man, Dylan Dylan Campbell break loose, and you know what? When he breaks loose and he gets foot loose, the Laurier Golden Hawks, they can get jiggy with it, and they can just ride off this momentum. Just unfortunately for the Golden Hawks, though, it was not the same kind of way they were playing in the second half. They kind of let Western, get their bearings after halftime and were able to kind of run away with it. They did try. They were rallying it with a late fourth quarter touchdown, but just too little too late. But still, if you're Laurier, even though it's a loss, this is the toughest test Western's had to face so far. You gotta feel proud of your team, Matt.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw down a little bit of an oxymoron here. It was a very positive loss for this team to go up against the Western offense that has just scored at will, and be able to go toe to toe with them and just stop them so often. It's incredible. Their defense, they intercepted Finch 2 times. That's the most this season in a game. And 4 sacks. They sacked Finch 4 times, and in the last 3 weeks, Western's only given up 1 sack. This Laurier defense came ready, came to play, and I gotta say, I think Western very, very surprised. You could tell they had no idea what hit them.
You could tell they also really didn't respect Laurier. I mean, sure, they had a win coming into the game, but it was against Waterloo, a team not a lot of people respect. And Western, they weren't showing the respect that is deserved for Laurier, being a young team, but they have a lot of potential, and Western wasn't showing that because early in the game they're basically in Laurier territory to score for them, and they decided to go for it on 3rd down instead of most teams taking the points, kick the field goal, and just gone on with it. Western was like, nah, we're gonna score a touchdown here, and Laurier, to their credit, stood up and held their end zone off from the points there for the Mustangs. Yeah. So Laurier, you gotta say, I mean, it's gonna be one of those seasons. It's a building year, as we keep saying, and I think even they will admit that. But their performance here has just been absolutely, against Western, was absolutely fantastic. That going into their homecoming game this upcoming week, they're facing another tough offense, and their defense was able to hold strong. And speaking of the team's performance, we actually got to meet up with Coach Faulds after the game, and here's what he had to say about his team's performance.
I was saying all week to our guys, they haven't been tested all year. And every single game for them was at least a 20-point spread at halftime. And I said to our guys, if we stay in it in the first quarter, now we just got to live to stay in it in the second quarter, which we did. So at halftime, we had the lead. We felt really good. And then at some point, they're going to get rolling. The one thing we can really correct, we had far too many penalties. So we need to really clean up our discipline and clean up and take away some of those penalties.
So there was Coach Faulds talking about his team's performance, and just as you said, Matt, even though it was a loss, you could just tell that he was very proud of how his team played against the number 1 school in the nation.
Oh, it definitely was, and of course he should be. That entire team should be very proud, and they should have a lot more confidence moving forward. This team is so different from the team we saw week 1 in Guelph. And it's amazing to just see how much they have grown and improved. And it's awesome to see. And one of their biggest rocks right now, I think, and it's great to always have someone you can lean on, right? And that's Dylan Campbell. We talked about their defense. Time to talk about their offense a little bit. They still did put up 24 points against a tough Western defense. And Dylan Campbell, huge product of that. 155 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 10.3 yards per carry. Once again, his yards per carry are crazy amazing. Including, he had his 100-yard run for a touchdown. That was just a great scamper. We were there on the sideline. It was very exciting to watch. But now Dylan Campbell is the leading rusher in the OUA with 538 rushing yards. Just an incredible game and an incredible season so far for him.
Definitely an incredible season. He's really re-energized this Laurier offense, yes. And I think as well with the little bit of the quarterback change in Frack, because the team believes offensively and definitely defensively. But that was an exciting week for us with Guelph and Laurier having big games and playing to their full potential. And we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna have our Player of the Week. So stay with us. Welcome back to First and 10, and Matt, it's our Player of the Week segment. And once again, a lot of top candidates. You could have gone with Robert Farquharson, who had a great return to the Guelph Griffins. Jazz Lindsay for his performance as well. Or Dylan Campbell, just for how he was able to run the ball for us being the third week. But we decided to stick defensively with the side of the ball with the Laurier Golden Hawks defensive back Felix Odom, who. For those of you who don't know, he's actually our favorite player to watch on the sidelines and when he's on the field, because he's just a character, really. He's just a ball of fun to watch out there. So, but not only is he just a ball of fun, but this week against Western, one of the top offenses in the nation, he was able to play a fantastic game. He had 5 tackles, 1 huge interceptions, and is able to break up 2 big plays. So for Felix Odom's ability to shut down that offense for what he was able to do, we named Felix Odom our Player of the Week, Matt.
Yeah, we sure did. And as you mentioned, his stats were great for this game, but that isn't the only thing that was great. And this isn't going to show up on the stat line. No one's going to see it. But he was matched up against George Johnson, Western's number 2 receiver, and he's actually the number 2 receiver in all of the OUA. He's averaging 115 yards per game. Felix Odom shut him down to 54 yards. That's incredible. He was all over him all game. To limit his production to half of what he normally gets, it shows how much how well defensively Felix Odom is and how well he prepared. You talk about having to study and all that. I'm sure that he prepared very hard. As you said, he's one of our favorite people to watch on the sidelines. He plays this game with a lot of fun, and he should. You know what? He's a 6'1" defensive back from Pickering, Ontario, and this is his final year of eligibility. This is his 5th year on a team that has really struggled over the last few years, but he is still committed to the future of this program. He's having a lot of fun doing it, and I'd love to see him possibly coach, or at least definitely be involved in football later on after he's done.
Well, absolutely, for sure. Felix is just a guy that we haven't been able to talk about too much in the show, but that's because I think a lot of quarterbacks don't throw to his side of the ball of the field when he's out there covering one of their receivers, because he's just such a top talent and a guy that for Laurier defensively needing a leader or two to look up to. You can tell they kind of lean on Felix to get the team as the kids would say, turned up, to make sure things happen and that the ball is back in Laurier's possession, because if they need a clutch pick, a guy that's going to get it's Felix Odom. If they need a big play, it's going to be Felix Odom, and he's going to be out there quick as a cat, maybe, just to make plays like that. So really, Felix Odom is our Player of the Week, and we actually spoke with Felix to see what he brings to the team.
With a young team, we got a young and fast team, so we got to use our energy and our speed. I'm just trying to ignite the guys and get them to go, because we got a lot of athletes that can make plays, and I want to get them going and give them that fire.
Well, that was Felix Odom talking about what he brings to the team. He obviously brings a lot of, great enthusiasm and energy and style. But we also spoke with Coach Falls, and this is what Coach Falls has to say about Felix.
Well, they were really trying to attack George Johnson, number 11, their one receiver, and Felix has got a great physique about him, 6'2" corner, so it's tough to drop it over the top on him. He got 1 PI call, I think, but he held George in check all day.
Well, there you have it. You can just tell how much Coach Falls really relies on Felix for the Golden Hawks defensively, and just for him being a 5th-year player as well, for such a young team, they need his leadership to definitely be in there. So Felix Odom is our Player of the Week for this week. Moving all along here, just to wrap up Week 5 of the OUA, taking a look at the scoreboard here. York 50 over the Carleton Ravens, having a score of 34. The Queens Gales, they still are a team that is a force to be reckoned with here in the OUA, with a 36-21 victory over the Ottawa GGs. And the Windsor Lancers, a team you're going to definitely be hearing about in this show later on, with a 20 26-11 victory at home over the Toronto Varsity Blues. Moving on to the league standings, nice to see Guelph move up to be tied for second place still with the Queen's Gales. It's going to be a real interesting finish down there when you look at those top three schools, Western, Guelph, and Queens, all with undefeated records.
The battle for the bye right there.
It really is. And then you just moving on, we got Windsor, York, McMaster, Ottawa, Waterloo, Laurier, and Toronto are tied for 9th, and Carleton, of course, they're still at the bottom. And looking at your power rankings here, Matt, we got nothing really changing too much here. We got Western, Queens, Guelph, McMaster, Windsor all still in the top 5. Ottawa moves now to 6th, and Laurier takes a step backwards to 7th with the loss to Western. But like we said earlier, it's not that big of a loss, and the way they played, it's only a 1 spot drop down. And then you get Toronto, York, Waterloo, and Carleton all rounding out the bottom here. And quickly moving to the CIS top 10, nothing really changed for us in terms of the OUA. Everything stays the same. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to look at the upcoming games, Laurier's homecoming game, and our favorite segment, Quick Picks. So stay with us. Welcome back here to First and 10, and Matt, we got another big, exciting week full of homecomings for both, Laurier having their homecoming and Guelph entering a homecoming this week as they go on the road. We're going to start with them. Why not? They're going on the road, but they're still here in the region against the Waterloo Warriors, who they have their homecoming. And for Guelph, they know what a homecoming can do for a team because last week was theirs. Sure, a much bigger atmosphere than what's going to be at Waterloo and Warrior Field, but still the atmosphere that homecoming can bring, having a lot of people from the past come back and see your school play football for the first time this season for many people, and a lot of more people are going to be there, and especially to see Guelph. I mean, Guelph could have some problems here, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I mean, obviously you look at this score and the spread's got to be huge. The Guelph's definitely the big favorite there. They routed Waterloo last season 47-17 with an easy victory there. But as you mentioned, Waterloo homecoming, lots of people in the stands. Guelph can't get complacent here. They cannot underestimate a team like the Waterloo Warriors. You look back a few weeks ago, Waterloo played Ottawa, and although they did lose to them, they were able to play them very competitively. Over 400 yards on offense for Waterloo, and they put up 32 points. So this team, they can put up points when they want to, although perhaps their offense a little inconsistent here and there. They can be dangerous at times, for sure.
Absolutely. I think Waterloo's kind of in the same boat that Laurier's in. They're both a young, up-and-coming team. I mean, in a couple years, there's going to be potential, I think, for both schools here in the Waterloo region. But for Waterloo, like when we saw them play Laurier, they had as well shown some signs of brightness. Yeah. They have a couple, strong players. They can really run the ball, I think, really well. And that, their quarterback and some of their play calls are pretty creative and interesting. Yeah. And I mean, you may have to go to that well a couple times here against Guelph. But, for Guelph, a team that you may say statistically doesn't put up a lot of yards or anything of that nature, the number one statistic for me is wins, and they have 4 of them. Waterloo has 1, and it's Guelph, I think, as well. We've said over and over again, their defense is so big. They're going to shut down this young up and coming offense, I really believe, and and put their new high-powered offense against Waterloo, who they have trouble stopping the run. Well, can you imagine that with Augustine and Farquharson there? I mean, this is not going to be. The Warriors may not want to come out and play.
Yeah, exactly. And Waterloo, they have the second worst defense in the league. They give up over 500 yards a game. It's not so good. Guelph really should be able to score at will with this one, whether it's with Jazz Lindsay through the air, with Farquharson on the ground, or even Jazz Lindsay on the ground. They should be able to push around this Waterloo offense. And then, of course, as you mentioned, their defense. I think they're going to get pressure all day long on this Waterloo O-line and on the Waterloo quarterback. It's going to be Anyway, I think it's going to be a miserable day for Waterloo, and you would hope so. But I mean, I'm going to keep underlining it. Guelph still needs to come to play. If they play like they can, they're going to beat UW, but they need to play like they can.
I think they're definitely going to play like they can, and for Waterloo's homecoming, it may be the Waterloo players' parents calling them home before you know it, before the final whistles blow.
Wow.
You never know, but the way Guelph can play. But staying with the homecoming theme, Laurier, the Laurier Goldenhawks have their homecoming, and they're playing a team with a very similar style they played to last week in Western, playing the Windsor Lancers, a very high-powered offense with the likes of Austin Kennedy at quarterback. You know, for Laurier, a defense that we saw really step up last week, they're going to have to, you know, definitely bring it just that much more this week upcoming with the likes of Kennedy and it being homecoming.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny what you say there. These offenses are very mirror image of each other. Very good quarterbacks, high power, passing attacks. And now it's funny, Jay. I did some research before this show.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, I know, right? This team, these two teams didn't meet last year, but 2 years ago they did in a 41-40 shootout that Windsor unfortunately ended up winning with a rouge with no time left. It was Austin Kennedy's debut for that game. He had 443 yards, 5 touchdowns, and over 100 rushing yards as well. What a debut for a quarterback. And then not only that, Felix Odom on the Laurier team, he was a receiver then for them and a kick returner. He had 150 kick return yards and returned one for a touchdown. So, I mean, maybe if you're Coach Falls, you might consider putting him in there for a kick return.
Well, definitely, because, you know, they're going to need to do anything they can to stop
Yes.
Austin Kennedy. And speaking of Felix Odom, we spoke with Felix Odom after the game last week, and I asked him about what he felt about the likes of Austin Kennedy.
We got to contain Austin Kennedy. He's the key to their offense. He runs around. He's an athletic guy, great athlete. He makes plays. Our biggest goal will be to contain him and shut him down.
Well, there he was. You can just tell that Felix knows what Austin can bring to the table for the Windsor Lancers. As well as we have been saying before, for Laurier, very young team. But the offenses of late, they have this rallying cry in the likes of Dylan Campbell. He's really motivated the team, and they're going to need a lot from him, and I think more so from the receivers this week, because, you know, Fracas has been able to get open and make, you know, avoid sacks to make plays, but his receivers have kind of dropped the ball literally on him here. So I think he's going to need his receivers to step up, and they can't all rely on Dylan Campbell to put their points up. I mean, he's going to have a big run here or there, but someone's going to have to make a play to catch on the pass catching side of things.
Certainly, this Windsor defense isn't a defense to mess with. Now, as always, though, I do believe Laurier's defense, Laurier's offense, the foundation is their running game.
Right.
But if they can get that going, it's really going to limit the really good Windsor pass rush. They're going to be worried more about the run than about the pass, and then that's when you can start implementing the play action pass, which Fracas does so well, and this Laurier offense is really built around. And that's when you get the big plays going. So if Dylan Campbell can start off running in the first couple quarters, and they can get a lot of pressure on Windsor's pass defense, rush defense, then they can attack through the air. And you're going to need some big plays against this Windsor team, because you know that their offense is going to get some big plays on you.
Absolutely. I think as well this one, maybe some special teams help from Laurier would help, because we've seen sides that they can finally break a big kick return here, but it just hasn't happened yet. But lastly, I mean, before we leave you here, we spoke with Coach Falls about this Windsor team, and here's what he had to say about Windsor.
All 3 phases have to improve. All 3 phases have to get better. And there are times where, our defense is on the field a little bit too much. So offensively, we have to withstand drives a little bit more, get more first downs, give them a couple breaks.
Well, that was Coach Falls talking about Windsor. You can tell he's, already got his mind kind of prepared coming up for this big homecoming game. And you know what? I think if Laurier wins this one, it would be I would say it'd be a bit of a huge upset, actually.
Definitely. And the excitement in this city and with that school and with the team, too. It would be so much fun, and they deserve it.
Exactly. You know what? They've been, done wrong a little bit at home just by unfortunate circumstances.
The U of T loss was tough.
Their U of T loss was tough, and their Western one, I would say, is tough, but I think they handled it well. So a win on homecoming against Windsor would be pretty nice. Yeah. But moving on to our favorite segment here, Matt. Quick picks. Quickly taking a look at it. The first Friday night game of the season, the Varsity Blues hosting the 0-4 Ravens.
I gotta go with U of T.
Gotta go with the Varsity Blues. Yeah. The Ottawa Gee-Gees and the York Lions.
I think it'll be a close game, but I gotta go with Ottawa.
I do think it'll be super close, but I'm gonna lean with the York Lions. I think they're just riding a big, strong wave right now. And lastly, the big one of the week on Sportsnet, the Queens Gales and the Western Mustangs.
I'm so excited for this one, Jason. I gotta go with Western. They just, all around, they look really good, but I'm excited to see them play Queens.
I think, you know what, I'm gonna lean with Queens because I think Queens is gonna be another tough test for Western, and Laurier may have found some holes in Western, but the big thing here, someone's O's gotta go, and that's gonna definitely happen on Saturday. But before we get out of here, if you have any questions, you can follow us on Twitter at First and 10 FB. For Matt, I'm your host, Jason Hagholm. Peace out, and enjoy some good football.